window, I would take it. Be right back. We're sure this is going to go though, right?
I just realized why I'm not. I'm okay. Let's try this again. I muted myself. It was awesome. Good.
Heard you.
Yeah, it happens. It happens all the time. You do one thing, you mute yourself to so you can have audio play, and then all of a sudden you forget that you mute yourself. I'm not. I'm okay. Let's try this again. I muted myself. It was awesome. Okay, cool. There. I can hear myself. Awesome. All right. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Red Pill Compendium, part 2 of the introduction. I am the Canadian Rogue, better known as Robert Kumitz. I am unfortunately fishless at this moment because I don't know where he is. Yes, Pan, I fixed the Twitch, so don't worry. It's not broken. I didn't break it. You should all be good. Everybody could hear me. I'm going to give him a bit more time, but I do have a guest with me. Hello, guest. Who are you, and why should we care? Yes, I'm...
Well, let's see. Most people in your audience would know me by the name Dean Esmay. I really did change the name to Max because I prefer it for about 30 reasons at once. But I mean, I'm serious about it. It's never been an attempt to hide thing. I used to be at A Voice for Men, and I am a co-creator of the Honey Badger Brigade, although those lion bitches like to claim I had no role there. I had so much more role than any of them will even come close to acknowledging. I used to do work for the National Coalition for Men, got an award from them for my media work, did men's stuff for many years before ABFM was even a thing, on father's rights stuff and parental alienation stuff. And, you know, I had started the Escaping Atheism Project for a wide variety of reasons, although I will say the Honey Badgers were a major inspiration for it. And so they should, take a bow to anybody who's currently mad at them in the atheist community. They helped make me. I helped make them, and they helped make me.
That's pretty much what they do. They tend to make people who they can't stand, and well, that's just the way how it is. So basically, we were kind of in the previous episode of the TRPC. We were kind of covering the drama that happened in Bloodsport between Alison Tieman of the Honey Badgers, who is supposed to be, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, the leader of the group, and Mr. Medicare, which proved that she was only there to shill her cause. Again, I put that in air quotes. And we kind of briefly went over a bit of backstory of the Honey Badgers and that. But since you are one of the main benefactors, or at least creators, I should say, of said idea, can you give us your insight of this entire drama that unfolded? Or did you get a
Sure,
chance?
Sure, I can.
Awesome.
I had remembered when I joined A Voice for Men. Okay, most of you guys aren't spiritual, but there were spiritual influences that got me there too. But nevertheless, I had come to A Voice for Men knowing that this was a mission I needed to take on. I recognized right away, actually, that what Paul Elam was doing and that John Hembling was doing and others, it made me a little uncomfortable at first, but so I guess I can't say instantly, but pretty quickly I just figured, no, these guys are doing something they need to be doing, which is basically getting out there and loud and brash and in your face, and to actually go ahead and be antagonistic and provocative. And because it was just needed. If you study politics much, there's something called the Overton window. Sure. It's worth knowing what it is. But if you look into it, it's basically at any given moment in the culture and in politics, there's something called the Overton window, which is the range of acceptable popular discourse or political discourse. And so, I mean, just to use a gross example, on the scale of, are you pro-life and anti-abortion, or do you think it's okay to kill and eat babies at age 3? And you can shift the Overton window only so much on a question like that, right? But you can shift people's opinion. And the Overton window because I had a long background in political commentary and punditry, actually. I know a lot about politics, a whole lot. And I could tell that what was actually going to be needed was people who were just going to go ahead and offend people. Yeah. In order to actually, if you do that and you do it successfully, you change the discourse, because even the people who looked at you and agree you were always too radical, nevertheless probably move 2 or 3 steps towards you. Yeah. In fact, I say without reservation that the work we were doing back, let's say 2012, 2013, 2014 at A Voice for Men is one of the reasons you're seeing more people now just openly going against feminism and being willing to be critical of it. 12 years, you still see this in parts of the culture, but 4 years ago, just blaspheming the name of feminism in public would just, people would just cringe, right? But now the feminists are completely on the run, and we were a part of that. So when I look at it, everything we did, do I regret anything? No, but I mean, do I have any regrets? Yes, but in the final analysis, I don't regret it. In any case, one of the things that we noted, and this would have been around, I can't remember exactly, but it was around 2012, 2013. There were always women. And when I got there, the message was much more the same. Anybody's willing to, anybody can come here of any religion as long as you're down with the cause. And here are the things that we care about. And there were a lot of atheists about, but they always started with the, I'm atheist, does that bother you? And I'd say, no, I'm Catholic, does it bother you? And that was it, right? I never had any run-ins with anybody over it. Although I found out some dirt on that later, and there were people who definitely were trying to hurt me, sabotage me, or get me gotten rid of simply for that reason. Yeah. But to get back to it, 2013, 2014, somewhere in there, it was obvious there were women around who were doing good and effective work and good and effective advocacy. And it felt like we needed to have some way to recognize them, like give them some kind of title. Nobody liked like FemRA. And of course, the hardcore egalitarians just say like, well, we shouldn't have any special label, but it seemed worth it, especially because in that day, which is not as true now, but in that day, a woman who was advocating for men's issues got a lot of shit. And she got a lot of shit from feminists, and she got a lot of shit from conservatives, and she got a lot of shit from men who didn't trust her.
Yeah, that sounds like internal misogyny if I heard of it. Get that? Isn't that the classic what they try to bring in is internal misogyny?
Oh yeah, right. And it just seemed like because they were still a minority, right?
Yeah.
Women weren't rushing in, and it seemed like a good way to embrace them. And the term honey badger, Alison doesn't want people knowing this, I don't think. The Honey Badger Brigade started with the woman who could be called the first honey badger, although she wouldn't take it. But the term honey badger came out of Dr. Tara Palmadier's forums, the Shrink for Men forums.
Okay.
And she had actually been using it differently, because when it first started, like, you know that Randall video?
Yeah.
And everybody's seen it, right? Nasty honey badgers, nastiest. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Randall. That she had used that, and I guess some guy in her forum had posted that video and said, my ex is just like that. And because, she's dealing with men who had psycho exes, right? And my ex is like the honey badger. And Dr. T had flipped it around and said, you know what? I kind of like the honey badger. The honey badger is kind of badass. Maybe you should be more like the honey badger and not let all this shit, that your ex is flinging at you be that way. So she was kind of embracing it as more of a positive term, which I kind of liked. And then she started talking about having a honey badger attitude in the comments on A Voice for Men. Well, we've got to have a honey badger attitude. And I'm like, you do have a honey badger attitude. And it really did come to me, this would be the ideal title to use, or we should at least try and float it.
Yeah.
And there was a bickering back and forth, and some people didn't like it, and some people were, and some were like, yeah, I love it. But we went with it because I was the one who really pushed it. And I began an interview series, which is still on my channel, called The Honey Badger Files, where I began officially interviewing our honey badgers. Do you know who the first honey badger was?
I think we kind of went over that because we had the first four, and it would have been Karen Strong, Diana Davison.
Nope.
No, really, she wasn't part of the group.
No. Well, she was, but let me first honey badger. Okay. Tara never actually liked our using the term that much. She didn't object that strongly either, but so she never really wanted to be called a honey badger, although I believe she did sign that document, and she would have every right to. But the first person identified as a honey badger was I was doing an official interview series called The Honey Badger Files to introduce people to the honey badgers, and the very first one was Christina Hansen, the woolly bumblebee.
Ah, the woolly bumblebee. I forgot about her.
On my channel. The second one I dubbed honey badger there at A Voice for Men was Diana Davison.
Okay. So...
I lost her interview because I got angry with her. Deleting it, and I shouldn't have, because it was not a bad interview, and I even now realize that the acrimony between me and Diana also had to do, in large part, with people being manipulative behind the scenes.
Usually that's what happens.
She was like a Vestal Virgin or anything either, but I have no great animosity toward her. I kind of wish her luck. I don't know if she's really going in the best directions, but whatever. Third honey badger was Erin Pitsey. You can still see my the article, the interview I did that really made me famous at A Voice for Men was an interview with Erin Pitsey. And that's around the time we got to be friends, and she was honey badger number 3.
Okay.
Honey badger number 4 was going to be Alison Tieman. However, we got to be close as friends for a while. Few months.
Yeah, that would have been the first line of trouble.
It would, because it turns out she has a pattern of doing this to guys, doesn't it?
Yes.
You're really close for a few minutes, a few months, and then something ludicrous happens. You're gaslit, and you're gone.
Correct. That seems to be her motive operandi. It's always seems to be that way. It's kind of weird, and it kind of goes back down to the question of what we had earlier of why she would have come out of the woodworks to go onto the Kumite show to do the blood sport with. In defense, in this almost white knighting, her one and only Mike, whatever his last name is, Dr. Ammerkamp, which is very questionable. And yeah, that was kind of strange, but continue on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So she was going to be a honey badger number 4. Mm-hmm. We had lined up, but we really started talking and we really got to know each other and really close. And I found her very insightful and a good friend. We instead decided, man, we're tired of talking about all this negative shit all the time. Because, you know, especially when we were doing it then, it was dirty, man. The amount of assault we were under for doing what we were doing. And I will give her credit for doing some good work there in terms of investigative work. She published a couple of knockout articles, and she used to be really useful when we were doing research or something, because we used to try really hard to be scientifically, factually, you know, like bulletproof, so nobody could say we were lying, right?
Almost.
And she was good at that. She was real good at that. Yeah. And anyway, what we said, this is so seedy and it's so negative all the time. You know, if we're going to have a real movement, we should have some kind of fun show, you know, something where we have because we were doing the ABFM radio we're going for every week, every day of the week at that point. Trying to have a different show, different things going on. And I said an entertainment show. And well, what will we do? And I'm like, I'm just a nerd. I like comic books and video games and stuff. And what if we put maybe a show on nerd culture? And she liked it, and she said she was into comics, although mostly she was into porn comics.
Yeah, no, if you actually read her comic, if you want to call it a comic, it is kind of weird and porny.
A lot of insight into the way her mind works now, more than she's probably comfortable with. But because I know a lot about her ideological background, which she goes out of her way to hide. But we created a show on nerd culture called Tales from the Infrared, which you can also find the old episodes of. And it's clearly me and Allison, a guy named Pony. But and they were fun, but then the relationship fell apart. We didn't quite gel. So it was gone. And then all of a sudden, you know, we were working up to this international conference on men's issues. We decide, multiple people were part of this conversation. We decided we should publish a joint letter from the Honey Badger Brigade, something we'll call the Honey Badger Brigade. Mm-hmm. I don't remember who added the brigade on the end, okay? But I mean, it was a whole group thing, people going back and forth. And what the guys decided is that no man should touch the article except to publish it. No editing, no suggestions. The women would write it themselves. And we would solicit as many women as possible to participate in the drafting and to put their signature on it. And a lot of the women on there were women I recruited and asked to sign it. Now there's the filthy liar, Peter Wright at A Voice for Men, who really runs the show over there and really pulls the strings at this point. You know, they're running a line that I'm making it up. I had very little to nothing to do with any of it. They even say he didn't edit any part of that document. I'm like, you motherfuckers. We all agreed no man would be allowed to edit it so that we could say no man had influenced the crafting of these poor women's minds. Mm-hmm. Right? We weren't calling the shots. They were going to say what they wanted to say their way. So my only role was going to be, they were going to edit it. They were going to make sure it was typo free. They were going to make sure everybody agreed on what it said. My only job was to hit the publish button, which I did.
Okay.
So, you know, I keep hearing this horse shit. I didn't have anything to do with anything. Oh, except, you know, the name, you know, pushing the name, doing a lot of the recruiting, pushing it as the managing editor, publishing the article. When they decided they wanted their own show, I gave them my blessing, even though I felt like I had really pushed the Honey Badger thing and had helped recruit these women into the whole idea in the first place. Yeah. Now, to be clear, Karen and Allison had been doing a show with John Hembling before that. But what you'll also find is that at that time, Alison was extremely shy and not real good on the radio. Nowhere near as good as she is now. Thought it in her that she was actually very talented and had a lot of potential, but she was sitting between two shrieking.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hang on.
We have a Nemo in the house, and he's trying to deafen us.
And Alison, I guess halfway to the clutter stop.
Sorry about the hurricane. The hurricane that just came in.
Yeah, Hurricane Nemo showed up. Hello, Nemo. How are you?
Good, good.
Okay, we have our special guest talking. Did you want to hang back and relax for a little bit so we can get through most of this?
Sure, I didn't even know the show started yet. I'm sorry.
You do realize it always starts at 7, right?
No.
Yes.
Sorry.
7 my time would be 3 your time.
You're going to want to go back and listen to this, Nemo, because this is all stuff you haven't heard, and they really don't want people hearing this either. They really don't.
Okay.
But the go where I left off, Alison had been on a radio show earlier with John Hembling and Karen Strawn. I had noticed a lot of talent in Alison, who was very, very shy, massively more shy than she is now. And she's pretty shy now in a lot of ways, but she's a lot more passive aggressively so.
Yep.
But in any case, I said this woman has talent, and she was very bright and she was very knowledgeable. I'm like, I want to hear more of her voice. And I actually really did coach her a lot and encourage her a whole lot, telling you got talent, you're really smart, people will like you if you do X, Y, and Z. I'm not saying I was her Svengali or anything, but I really encouraged her a lot. And when they decided they wanted to go independent, I gave my blessing. The whole narrative that I was like, I'm nuts and I had nothing to do with any of that horse shit. I have more credit to it than most. And that doesn't mean anything because there's at least a dozen other people who deserve credit, including a lot of the women on that signature list who were shoved out because Alison didn't want them.
That's where I was kind of confused for a bit because we have currently on, let's see, there's some wikis that they'll have it, but they'll have the first 4, but they'll leave out Bumblebee, as well as they don't give us a real reason of why the separation truly happened from Diana Davis and the lot, and just leaving us with Karen and Alison for the most part before we get Hannah and whoever else that they decide to throw in. So we were leading up to something. I forget the exact timing, but at the time we were really, basically the mainstream press was really hitting us hard and lying about us constantly. The mainstream press did not stop lying about it, and they were intensifying the things they were saying about us that were nasty and hysterical and whatever. I mean, mind you, and our strategy was to embrace that and just get more inflammatory so they would give us more attention. Mm-hmm. But the line was going that these honey badger, these MRA women either don't exist or they're meek little nobodies who are just being bossed around by men behind the scenes. So we were going out of our way to push these are intelligent, interesting women who can speak for themselves. Come talk to them. They're honey badgers. They're tough. They can take whatever you get to them. That was the thinking we were having at the time. And I'm going to say, as the managing editor there, I was the one pushing a whole lot of this stuff. So I mean, no, they don't get to say I'm nobody. They don't get to, and it's not even just about my pride, because we're clearly, once I started comparing notes, especially over the first year, but especially over the last year, I've learned so much, and how many people they fucked over. Yeah.
It's amazing how many people they've really affected.
I don't know who I'm most disappointed in. I these days I do think it's Karen, but whatever keeps her whining. as a recovered alcoholic myself, I know exactly what you do with an alcoholic. If you want to control an alcoholic, you give them just enough money that they can keep drinking as long as they want, and then you can control them.
Yeah, but still, I don't know. I don't know how much agency I can take away from Karen. Like, she's done some pretty bad stuff, and nudged out a lot of people, and done a lot of, I guess, Alison's dirty work. Through that type of thing. So it is tough to say which one's worse, Alison or Karen.
I would have to kind of give it to Karen sometimes, but sometimes I think that when it comes down to it, Karen allows Alison to do what she does, so as long as that she has whatever she needs. So basically it's a give and take, and really, if Karen really wanted to, she could probably shut Alison up. It's very quickly. She's the strongest
in a
really.
second.
Yeah.
Karen is the strongest one. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm telling you, the mastermind here is Alison. From every level of both what I've seen and what I know of group dynamics and how these little cults work, because it is a little cult, more or less centered around Allison.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure all three of them are into witchcraft. I don't care whether you believe in that stuff or not. People do play with that stuff, and it says things about their personality. And
it doesn't help that Hannah's a Wiccan, so that's something that it just kind of threw me when I was introduced to that. I'm like, wait, what?
Hannah's an actual Wiccan. Alison has something to do with like a faith in nature type of thing, like a kind of a far cry from what Sam Harris is, but like literally believing in nature magic almost.
Yes.
And Karen plays herself as an atheist, but I have a funny feeling there's more to it than that.
Oh yeah.
It's very clear that, but I can get into some stuff that I know that'll probably freak you out. But maybe we should just finish the line of honey badgerdom. I mean,
of course.
It was clearly. I mean, I've got confirmation from multiple sources, including Paul Elam's own mouth. At this point, Alison made an effort to get me fired from A Voice for Men. At what point, a really serious one, and the reason was that I was Catholic. There was no other reason. I was not trying to convert people. I was not pushing a religious line. I did keep saying one thing consistently. I said, you can't, because the atheist element, the ideological atheist element was coming in, and I kept saying, look, there's a top limit on this. Not everybody's going to be atheist. We do have to have some kind of thing where we're just not nasty to religious people, and we need to welcome them into the voice. If we're going to debate feminists, we need to debate them too, whatever it is. But they need to be part of this, and that was as far as I ever went. You look at my current red pill religion team. It is the living embodiment of that. Actually, I mean, we're mostly Christian, okay. But we got atheists we hang out with. We got an atheist volunteer. We got a Hindu. We got Jews. We got multiple different types of Christians. We hang out. Muslims. The Muslim things give me a headache. But we're very inclusive and open to people who just don't want to be assholes. And we have been mostly still focusing on what I call fighting the ideological atheists. But we're going to be moving back into these issues because they're not being covered. And this is the one I keep having trouble getting people to hear me on. Ideological atheism truly is a movement. I'm telling you, I recognized this when I was an atheist. There's the normal atheist who just doesn't believe this shit or doesn't understand why anybody else would, or just it's just not his thing or whatever. And these people who really have a very identifiable, and once you can identify it, easily punctured set of ideological convictions, and without getting a long short of it, it started as a social justice movement.
The stench of atheism plus still stinks up the place.
Yeah,
and I think that's the best way to put it.
But I have to finish because a lot of you who are too close to that still don't really see it. Cultural Marxists, going back more than a century, all the way back to even the Stalin era, have a specific ideological flavor of atheism with very identifiable talking points and beliefs that go with it. And when you recognize it, you can even recognize it as the same, very similar to the feminist narrative. And they recruit young people into it. And then they will use some of them, the ones with the talent who have enough talent and motivation. They'll use some of them as shock troops to go out and harass people.
Yeah.
And there's money to be made doing that if you're good at it. And a lot of, and I'm not saying everybody who was involved in these atheist forums was like that, but a certain section, a cadre of them were, because really this was a money-making enterprise. Mm-hmm. They were taking donations. They had a point of view. They had a political agenda they were pushing and all that. It's very identifiable. I'm not conspiratorial. And when the push came, I mean, because basically because all that new atheist rhetoric is social justice rhetoric, all of it. And I'll prove that to you if you want. So even if you're an atheist, you ought to be able to look at it and go, wow, I'm reading a narrative about myself that may not even be true, right? Because they were pushing atheism the same way they push feminism.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll at least somewhat agree with you, because I've read the information, and like the majority of atheists tend to be very far left-leaning. That information is clear, so I can see your point. As in, I need to look into it more, but I feel like
that's fine.
We
can do another show. We can do another show.
No, hang on, guys. Okay, hang on. We will be doing another show for that one. We can go into this in much more detail at a later later time.
Yeah.
So basically, the conversation at hand is going to be covering the honey badgers as it is, and the drama that came out from the blood sport that was. Right. So let's focus.
Let me bring it back to that. You're gonna have to take my word for it. You're going to have to take my word for it. The average civilian, non-religious person does not know what I'm talking about, but these people are real, and I give you their resources. And so now, here's my point. A lot of those people, when they left Atheism Plus, came rushing out of Voice for Men and the Honey Badger Brigade, which is okay, except a lot of them, enough of them, were keeping the same thuggish attitude. And they were very brutal and nasty to religious people, and they just did it routinely. And nobody would talk to me about it, and blah blah blah. Push comes to shove, I know at least 3 of us, and I don't want to call too much attention to the specific individuals. Okay, I mean, I might mention it to a few people off the scene, but they don't want any further harassment. No, women were driven out of Honey Badger Brigade who were in that movie, were driven out by psychos from basically atheism, refugees from Atheism Plus, who were keeping the same mentality of that, we're going to brutalize and be nasty to religious people. And those women were attacked by those thugs. And some of the celebrity atheists that are out there, they know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that was done to me too, and I was targeted heavily, and harassed heavily. And I guess there was some kind of conflict within, because some people liked me because I had been in Gamergate and I had done serious men's rights work. But it only takes another Crown tea. It only takes another Crown tea, or another Sargon, like with the Candid affair and harmful opinions, or some of the shit Medicare has gotten into in the past. I was targeted. That's actually where my whole thing on atheism began, because I began to start seeing and realizing what was going on.
So just so I can understand, if you don't mind me interrupting, Dean. So you think that and I just want to make sure I understand your position, that the link between atheism and I guess the honey badger cult are directly correlated in this, I guess, taking advantage of people who are needy and everything, and like atheism and honey badgers and their hatred for religion is all related into this controversy. Is that what I'm gathering?
It totally is. Because I can tell you again from, again, I'm not going to give all my sources, but I think I'm credible and I have no reason to lie here.
Yeah.
They wanted no religious people. In fact, they ideologically pushed the line that religion is the enemy and feminism is an enemy. But they also push a line that what they call traditionalism is the bigger enemy. And I didn't believe this for the longest time, because it's a good front smoke. But what they mean by traditionalism is anybody who's religious, especially if it tends towards the Christian or Jewish religion.
I always kind of float between that whole line. I've always thought out the truth, whatever the truth might actually be. And within this idea of this community, this new launch of the Red Pill Compendium. We seek out the truth, we offer the truth, nothing more than that, whatever that truth may be. And that's the basic core of the tenement for us here. So anybody who would like to join us for future shows or whatnot, always, all are welcome. This is the old way of Red Pill.
Yeah.
So
it should be.
The classical style of Red Pill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to let you know,
I
Dean,
like
that
mentality. I do. I really do like that mentality.
Well, keep in mind
so
that my political standing, and I think we've covered this in one of our first episodes, Nemo, is a centralist that kind of swings back and forth between the left and the right, but mostly on the right sometimes. Traditionally for MGTOW, for me, it's classic. I kind of go, we were rogues at one time. We were just guys who were philosophers and seeking out knowledge, scholars, so things like that. So this is why we're here.
It was far more simplified back in the day, the original MGTOW.
Yes.
It was more about what is the need for companionship and all that, instead of, and like the decision of you go your own way, as in you decide what your own life should
be,
how your own life should have value. And I totally back that original meaning of MGTOW. And as I said, now it's been kind of bastardized by, as you've mentioned, all those Sandman and all those other ones. Mm-hmm. And as myself, my political side, I guess, would be right of center if I had a gun to my head. But I don't really like picking a political side. There's some issues I'm quite conservative with, and there's some issues I'm very left-leaning with. It really depends what we're talking about. We're talking about issues for, like, suicidal men. I'm very left-leaning. When we're talking about issues of gun control, I'm probably right-leaning,
Correct. And basically going forward from this, we should get down to, how do you feel about this whole drama that was unleashed with Mr. Medicare and Alison Tieman for the Bloodsport? It kind of...
Mr. Medicare had, of course, targeted me, as has had a number of people. Mm-hmm. I think back when he was doing a lot more of his internet thug work than he is doing now.
And so on and so forth. But I
remember podcast you versus him in a pseudo debate. It was a
complete setup. I didn't even know I was on the air. I had asked that guy, can we talk privately? Because I think maybe we've had a misunderstanding. We're about 90% congruent. We do have some disagreements. Mm-hmm. I had texted him a few times. Can we just talk first? Because I think, I think this is not a necessary conflict. And instead, he was nice but passive aggressive. And then I came on the line and he had me on the air and I didn't know. And he had that whole Islam didn't do nothing stuff, and I know. And he again immediately started. I had just gotten home from taking my kid to school, and he immediately starts hitting me with accusatory questions, which of course will get a guy completely off balance. And it was, it was on purpose, and I know it was on purpose, and I know he got paid for it. But
most likely, but he pretty much got paid for the clicks for the most part.
Yeah. And also, that one really did catapult him into popularity of doing that. I will say that he...
Political advocacy work, I think he probably also won't be happy to hear me talking about. But no. There were some people paid to go after me. And they weren't all men's rights people being paid to come after me. Some right-wingers came after me, too, because there was a lot of political money for skeptics running around in 2016. Let me put it to you that way.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me just stopping you, because I appreciate the story, and I'd love to actually talk about that in another one, because I really want to focus back on the honey badgers, right? Because the way I found out that you were interested in this is by reading through your comments, and your comment was very, very supportive of, I guess, the Bloodsport format and Medica's attack, and rightly calling out the honey badgers for being dishonest, lying thieves who will basically shill and do whatever it takes for the money, right? I actually want to make it clear why I'm annoyed with Medicare by that pass and all that. This isn't about him, and I know things change and people change and situations change, and I never hated him. I still don't. Okay.
But in any case, the recent one where he took apart Alison Tieman, I just wanted to give him a big kiss, because I don't think I deserve what he did to me, and I don't think all the people he's pounced on have deserved it. But at the same time, some of them are richly deserving, and he's an artist at carving somebody up.
Yes.
And
He's very good at what
I
he
give him
does.
that.
He's like that. I forget what the name was. It was like Manhood Academy. Do you
Yeah.
remember them?
Yeah, I remember them.
He's like
It's
a
very
much smarter version of them. Yes, he
Yes,
is.
it is.
He's afraid to talk to me now, though, because he knows he can't punk me again. And I'm not afraid of him. But so he probably won't. But anyway, to get back to it, no, he was brilliant. He exposed this. I'm gonna use the phrase, I've used it before, and I'm gonna put this in the water. What's a honey badger? A fat, hairy, two-faced perimenopausal weasel. That's what
exactly.
honey badger is. And since I named them honey badger, I can do that.
Yeah.
Every one of them honey
You
badger.
can change the
I'll have to
meaning.
live with it, huh?
Yeah, you can change because originally was. I remember the whole because I've been here since Honey Badger. I think that's when I really got into men's rights with you guys. Like, was when Honey Badger Radio and Blog Talk Radio was all like that's a long, long time ago. And I do remember that.
Let me interrupt and point out that a honey badger really is literally in the animal kingdom a giant weasel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
yes.
It is. I just remember the original setup for the sale, and it's actually changed quite a lot since back then. Because originally was like, the toughest, most forceful, most we don't give a fuck, and it's really changed. Like the narrative has changed, their style of the honey badgers have changed, everything's changed with it. But yeah, I like to
nerd culture.
definition.
They pretended to be into nerd culture originally, and you know who gave them that street cred? Me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of them.
We were used to having special guests for your. I forget the name of the show, but it was a while ago. They
Comes from the infrared, which was
thank you.
Tales from the Infrared, the nerd culture story. I started with Alison because I wanted to do a nerd culture, lighthearted show on nerd culture and talk about video games and comic books.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, no, none of that. I had no influence on the Honey Badger Brigade at all, right? Yeah, give me a break.
Yeah.
But,
I remember that. I remember that. That's very similar to our show, Gator and Frog, where we talk about video games and whatnot.
Yeah, that's pretty much our bread and butter for the most part over there, gatorandfrog.com, or you can go to our kick here since you guys are on Twitch. We have the show happening on Saturdays, roughly about 9 o'clock my time, PST. I believe it's Penn's time, which she's ET, I think it is, at 11 p.m. At your time, Nemo, I believe it's roughly around, 2? Or
4
later?
p.m.
Oh, 4, okay.
That's why I get so confused because I always look at Penn's time, not your time. That's why I get messed up with these things.
See, no. I try to put everything around my time because of the fact that my time's easier.
I've got to add a third
Penn's
clock
is
for
12
Alberta.
Eastern. Okay, thank you, Penn. Well,
Yeah.
I forget that you're a couple of more hours ahead of me, Penn. Yes, 9 p.m. PST. Got it. I remember that. I remember. I did say that. At least I hope I did. If I did, you can bitch at me later.
It's my fault. I had other stuff. Anyway. But, yeah, I guess it was a very...
By the way,
Go.
Yeah, let me just add 2 more things, and I think I will have you caught it up. It is a fact, not an opinion, that they go out of their way only to recruit atheists and occultists. It's an ideological choice.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an ideological choice. Mike refers to it in private as our ways. Are they compatible with our ways? And their ways are occultism or atheism.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they are.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I remember as Crystal Garcia got more and more traditionalist.
Yes.
Is when she got pressured out, and I think she's one of the best female men's rights activists out there because she does some incredible.
Brilliant.
Things.
Yes, she was brilliant, and she was into new age spirituality at that time. But she and I got along anyway because I get along with people. And yes, she was viciously attacked for the reason that she was spiritual in that way and that she had a positive spirituality.
Yeah,
Badgers don't practice a positive spirituality. Typhons and demons and shit like that. Again, how seriously she takes
seen that.
Typhon is a demonic name, and she told me that herself. Plus, I confirmed it with quite a few other people who are experts in that community.
I
don't know how serious.
It is a demonic name, and it's not as serious as you would think. It's one of the lesser, but it's still pretty potent.
That's still pretty fucked up shit. You know?
Let me just
say, well, once again, I've always been on the fence when it comes to spirituality. I don't know. I'm definitely not what you'd call an atheist because I have some belief in it, but I don't know if I can be put in a category, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's
and my
something
point
out
would
there
be-
that I have no idea what it is, and I don't know if I want to know it. You know, that's kind of my philosophy.
There's two levels of this. There's the people who, okay, look, I got a pagan shaman on my team, and I got a guy named Autumn Storm who's been a professional working witch for like 30, 40 years now. What Autumn will say there's basically two kinds. There's the snowflakes who are just playing with it and don't take it seriously, which he'll tell you is dangerous. Or two, there's the ones who do take it seriously. Now, either way, whether they take it seriously or not, it says something about a person. And to correct you, what Autumn Storm told me and what my pagan shaman friend told me is that no, the Typhon from Egyptian mythology, which was where she draws it from, again, from her own mouth, she told me when we were supposedly friends, it's a god dedicated to pure destruction.
Okay.
It's
So
a demonic
it's kinda like
god that's
sex.
dedicated to nothing but destruction.
Okay.
Not even really creative destruction. And so again, that just says something, but they're all playing with stuff like this. So it at least says something psychologically about them. They auto-exclude, especially any believing Christians or Jews, and they will mistreat them if necessary to get them out. And again, I have multiple confirmations of this, including multiple people on the Red Pill Religion team. It happened too, who won't go public, right? Because they don't want the drama, but they do want to help.
Can I ask a question, if you don't mind?
You've been asking many questions, Nemo. This is part of your show. You can ask many questions as you want.
No. But because Dean, I want to pick your brain about this, and I appreciate that you want to get into the spiritual side of Alison Tieman and how many questions that raises about some of the things she gets up to. But I'm more like right now trying to focus on, I guess, the financial concerns that have been raised with the fundraisers, and I know they used to get somewhat paid by AVFM. I know and I'm wondering just how much money has been stockpiled by the enterprise that is Honey Badger Radio. Would you have any idea, like, how big that is?
Much, no. I know that, however, that between AVFM and HB and the Honey Badgers, the back scenes relationship that really ties the two organizations is Peter Wright and Alison Tieman. Now, I haven't doxed Peter Wright yet. I may not. I may. It just depends. But they're both trust fund Marxists who've never really had jobs.
He's a trust fund baby, for sure. You know,
And so-
but
and
go ahead.
they're both from a Marxist background. And Peter is a Marxist. I mean, he's the one who publishes all the back stuff, and Marxist stuff informs all of his writing if you look at it. That's just where his background is. He's from Australia, and he's a trust fund brat just like Alison. They're both from Marxist families. And so, I mean, it informs who they are because the kind of rough ideological atheism I've told you about, comes out of that. They're raised in it. Actually,
I understand that the hostility towards religion comes from the Marxist ideas that I know for a fact Alison has through her philosophy.
There's financial ties there too, because some of their Patreon funders and such are from this little network of old blue-haired, kind of renegade Trotskyist Marxists who are against, I call them Trotskyists. I'm not meaning literally Trotsky, but you know what I mean. They're renegade Marxists against feminism, and they got their own ideology they're pushing instead, and they want to bring in people they can recruit into that. And it wouldn't be so bad if they'd be upfront about it, but of course they can't. Instead, they do this thing where they recruit among, angry atheist young men who are into the militant thing, or guys who are into weird occultism. They've even got one, and so, I mean, that's just part of the ideology. And that goes with the Marxism. So there's hidden money behind the scenes you're not seeing from a network of Marxists, renegade Marxists. As for how much they've collected and what they've done with it, I couldn't tell you. But I got to tell you, I condemn in the strongest possible terms the building of this house. It's so disastrous. Using Earl Silverman's name, just like Wooly Bumblebee.
I know. It really made me mad too. I know what you're going, but keep going.
And then the thing is arguably more heinous than what Wooly Bumblebee did. Because I can tell you, if anybody ever wants to revisit that drama, there was up to a point where Christina did seem like she was trying to do the right thing, and she really was at least going through the efforts to show, hey, I'm doing something with this money. Here's how I'm going to help men who need help with it. These people have no agenda. They admit they have no agenda. And if you really look at it, what she's basically saying is, well, what we'll do, nobody can agree on the exact agenda, but if we have a headquarters, we'll at least have a place where people can say, yeah, there's some place where there's somebody for men's rights in a building.
No, it's much worse than that.
And then we'll have our agenda. We'll finally put together an agenda once we have our headquarters. In the meantime, people build agendas, huh?
Yeah, I was going to say it's much worse than that, because they've done this really agenda shift thing approximately 4 times that I've noticed. They did it once when they were originally Honey Badgers with Blog Talk Radio and AVFM. Then when they left that, they changed their agenda slightly again. And then they did it a 3rd time when they stopped being a non-profit company and they became an LLC, because they had to do that because the tax man was riding their asses. And then they finally did it for a 4th time with the house, with the Badger Cave, as they like to call it. They've changed their agendas 4 times or changed their narrative 4 times. And then you're right. This one's probably the worst one, because they played off the shoulders of giants that died to, to get a fucking house. And it's just it's a holiday home, basically.
You and I are using the word agenda wrong there, because are different there, because you just identified changes in the identity. What's more to the point, they have no positive agenda. They have no plan on how to, for example, I did something with a bunch of other people all participating. I did something called the Men's Rights March 2013 statement from March 2013, which everybody liked and actually is a pretty good agenda. And it wasn't just me, it was a whole lot of other people, although I was shepherding it. And everybody liked it, but these people are Marxists and don't like it because there's things in it that Marxists don't like. And so, I mean, when asked what their men's rights agenda is, they can't say what they're for. They can only say what they're against.
You're absolutely right with that, and I'll agree. And I'm one of those similar people where I've actually achieved things in the real world through my own things that have been towards an agenda. My one being the screening of the Red Pill for Australia.
Wait, Nemo, you actually achieve things?
Yes, and it turns out you can do that without making $700 to $3.6 million a year.
I know.
You can do it with about $5,000 and 700 hours.
I don't know. I think you really need that 7K,
Yeah.
Per show. I really do.
Yeah.
Anywho, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt to put in a little banter.
Go ahead.
To say that they'll construct their agenda after they have their headquarters. And they've also had the balls to say,
They've already got the headquarters. They've already got the Badger Cave.
I know what you mean. I mean, when it's finished, whatever. Their first goal is getting the house the way they want it, and then they'll finally have a men's rights agenda. Meanwhile,
I apologize for semantics.
Yeah, and meanwhile, claim they're the only choice. Did you hear that in the last the last fundraiser video Alison did? It's obscene. They're saying they're the only option that the young men have, and I'm like, what are you talking about? There's men's rights activists all around Canada who they could be supporting and talking about.
Yes.
There are groups all over. When I was running things, and at least at A Voice for Men, I had outreach to groups that were fathers' rights groups, all over the world, men's rights groups, parental alienation groups, child abuse groups. We had links to all those people, and they would also send us stuff. And no, they're lying and claiming they're the only choice when in fact there's so much choice all over Canada. Everything they are is fraud and lie and drugs and freaky weird sex magic shit. That's the best I can make out of what they are now. And they have just shit all over so many people. They will shit on you if you're a religious man and you go near them. They will.
Yeah.
Not just that, but they'll also shit all over you if you don't oblige by their agenda. I've come across that one because
absolutely, and their agenda, I'll let you finish, but I'll say yes, as long as you don't cross their agenda, and their agenda shifts with the wind and basically what cycle of her period Alison's on.
Correct. No, because I was gonna say, because me being an atheist and a classical version of it, basically the lack of belief, it doesn't necessarily mean I don't entirely disbelieve if there's evidence that provides. I will kind of swing and kind of go, okay, maybe that's plausible. But because of the factor I don't follow the same doctrine.
Untrained ideologues. You're not one of the untrained ideologues.
No. And because of the factor that I don't practice that same kind of belief when I question everything as a true skeptic would, or a true individual who wants to be a little bit more enlightened, they kind of freaked out on me, and they were like, her especially, she was like, you're no longer you should no longer be a member of this group. I'm cutting you off. I'm giving you back some of your money, and you just go away and never to be seen again. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't hold the same form of viewpoint, doctrine, or anything else like that, they will literally cut you out. They'll find different ways to do so.
Yeah. And that's the way these little cults works.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a good reason why they never really had me for much of their shows or anything, regardless of the fact of like the meetup and stuff like that we helped organize down here, because they realized that I wasn't in for any of their shit, basically. I was not captivated by them in any way, shape, or form, and I was just telling them the facts, like, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. No, you cannot have the phone number of ACO. I will not give you the phone number of the investigator for this case. I am not also going to give any information about the terrorist threat that happened there. All I'm going to tell you is there was a terrorist threat. That's all you know. Sorry, Alison. And that got her very mad.
Of course it would get her very mad, because of the fact you weren't following her doctrine. You weren't following what she wanted. She wanted to have that narrative so that she can complete her case, going, yeah, see, over here in Australia, they don't like us too, so give me money.
Yeah. Our lives are at risk. Would be the best.
You guys continue, up on screen, I have the Canadian Men's Group directory for everybody who is watching. For those who are in Canada, there's people out in Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, and so on and so forth. Actually, all across most of Canada, except for the Northwest Territories, unfortunately. Saskatchewan, Prince Edward Island, and Yukon seem to be out as well. But yeah, if you guys are within those areas that you'll be seeing on screen, or if you really want to, just Google or whatever you're using for your browser, Canadian Men's Group directory, and it will send you to this awesome page. Or hell, better yet, just type in Men's Group directory, and chances are you'll find somebody who's local to you. You do not have to use the badgers. There are more people out there who are more reputable, who are more wanting to support men for all causes, for whatever reason out there. So please go there. Don't go.
Can I do a shout out for the one in Australia?
Please.
mensshed.com.au. They are all around Australia. There's about, I think, 300 institutions now all across Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide, all the main suburbs. And what they do is basically, if you're just a guy that needs somewhere to go because I know you haven't got really much left, to do from day to day, you can go there, and there's got all sorts of stuff between support, between actual like how do I put this, like workshops where you can build stuff. They've got all sorts of things, and it's a great place for people to go that don't have anywhere else to go. Massive shout outs to them. You don't need a honey badgers.
You really, really don't. You don't need the honey badgers for anything, and I mean, I think I've probably given you enough information to digest. I could say more, but these people are, if they're not criminal, they ought to be. It's unbelievable what they've done. Oh, I wanted to mention this observation. If you, Erin Pitsey was such a big part of all this, and she does not, of course, have anything to do with these women, but if you read Erin Pitsey's book, This Way to the Revolution, the way she got her shelter taken away from her was taken over in exactly the way Alison took over Honey Badger Brigade and Peter Wright took over A Voice for Men, and changed them. They changed them radically so that when the movie came out, it would look like this weird ideological zone they've created was what they saw in the movie, and that these people and the message were the same. It was an effort to hijack the movie for that agenda and their good, and they marginalized a lot of guys. There were a lot of guys who you got screwed at your screening. They didn't give you any help on that or any acknowledgement or help. Dan Perrin's up there in Canada had an even worse experience, and I've talked to other Canadian MRAs, some willing to go public, some private. Somebody was actually paid $1,000 to keep Dan Perrins off the stage at the Q&A sessions after one of the premiere movie screening, I think, up there in Toronto. Dan was there. Someone was paid to make sure he didn't get on the stage for the Q&A panel. They just took the whole thing for themselves, and it was tons of people they did this shit to. It's unbelievable. I think it's Karen I'm most disappointed in, but I think it's the alcohol that's done it to her. When I got to know her, and I know her for a couple, 3 years pretty good, more so than Alison, and Karen used to have a moral compass. You know, she used to talk about owning your shit and living up to your mistakes and doing right by people. And I think at some point the money, fame, and booze whore came out, and she's lost any authenticity she ever had as a person. It's devastating to watch. She really was a real decent person at once, and it's like she gave in to some demons, and that was just it.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I remember the original threat narrative videos, which is what really got me interested in Alison Tieman. Those are almost a decade old now. But those were proper, authentic, interesting looks on how threat narratives work. And now she's the ultimate abuser of those threat narratives. She'll use those and it's just kind of terrifying. The way she was speaking in that video with Mr. Medical, how she was using every psychological strategy she could think of to try and take advantage. And it's even said that everyone fell for it but Medical. You know, you can say what you will about him as a person, but it's pretty incredible. Everyone else is like, oh, she wants to apologize. It's like, no, she doesn't. She wants another chance to shill. And that's exactly what she did. And she's like, why don't you guys want to hear about this? Why don't you want to protect me? You're making me sad. And it was every single strategy in the book was there. And really, 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 I've always been aware of it, but it made me just realize just how effective she is at using these tactics to really control the narrative. And I guess it explains why she's got so many dedicated fans that will basically, lay on
the altar for her and take a bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really lays back into the cult mentality that you guys were talking about earlier.
Yeah, well, this is something that I kind of approached you in the last previous show, that they are more of a cultish style and approach and everything, because when I infiltrated the group, and yes, Alison, I infiltrated your group, the first thing I was introduced to was basically the Kool-Aid. Yes, some of the people that they had, especially on their patronage side, or their what do you call it, their Skype channel that they had before they were introduced to Patreon, there were a lot of loose threads that I was able to pull from and see exactly where and who did what for the most part. Now you have the French Badger, better known as Remy. Remy, he seems to be one of the biggest providers when it comes down to donations, and they treat him almost like he's a god to a degree, but that's also to keep that money going. There's a few people who were in the within the Badger group, especially the patronage side, who were barely making any money and was still giving, to a point where I was questioning, kind of going, do you understand that these people can't get work, that they can't have a steady income, and that you're still demanding money out of them? That makes no sense.
What I can tell you, I'll make two observations about this. One is funny. One of the reasons it didn't work on Medicare is they both trained on similar techniques. And he recognized her shit. He recognized her shit. Second, and I applaud him for it. I still do. I've never thought he's an evil guy. I actually never have. But the second is she's a dialectical materialist. This actually informs her worldview and her weird nature worship. We can go into in another show what that's about, because I should probably go soon. But she's running a classic Marxist game. I'm not kidding you. I can show you.
Dean, before I forget, we are going to be kind of running from maybe another 15 minutes or so. So if you have to go right away, because usually we do.
Wait, I can do another 15 minutes or so if you want.
Because usually I try to make it within about an hour to about 90 minutes. So because this is one of the specials and we're kind of covering the whole drama that is, I kind of like the idea that we're doing it tonight for 90 minutes. So you got about another, say, 20 minutes or so.
Because the scary thing is we haven't even scratched the surface. That's the scary part.
Like I said, we'll probably have multiple parts for this. Part 3, yes, as Penn would say. So if you want, again, either
Honey Badger's the Infinity Gauntlet.
Apparently, yes. If you want, Dean, you can always come back to continue as well. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
To do this, I would also like to redo our God dialogue now that we're both older and more mature. But I'm going to repeat it. She's a born and bred from the diaper Marxist, and once you and if you know the history of how Marxists think and how they train their kids, and the techniques they learn on how to subvert an organization, she uses all of them. I can give you several book references on how they do it. They do it the same way every time. She likely learned this from her dad, who was a very serious Marxist political radical in his day, which is something that I know, that I have confirmation on, that she doesn't know I know. And that's some stuff. I mean, I'm serious. The Honey Badger Brigade needs to be fucking destroyed or taken completely away from these whores. And I'm not going to apologize for that.
I couldn't agree more. I think Honey Badger Brigade needs to be destroyed. I think it's actually, like, as Penn is saying in the chat, you know, people have gone bankrupt donating to these fucking vampires, and I'm done with it. I am sick of them using the shield of men's rights to attract men in and then take them for all they're worth.
I don't mean to interrupt, guys, but being an infiltrator in that and learning what I've learned, I can probably say that Dean has a lot of information that is correct. But for me, being an outsider going in and being what I am, I also agree that the honey badgers need to be dismantled and probably be put together if it's going to be used for what it was originally meant to be used for, or walk away from the project altogether. Henceforth, why we are now doing what Nima wanted to do quite some time ago, which was to go into a huge expose of everything the Badgers. So yes, Badgers will be our main standpoint for the longest time.
Guess what? The Red Pill Religion team has plans. We're gonna work together.
Yeah, there we go.
Alison's created a lot of enemies, and I plan to use that to my full advantage. She's hurt a lot of people, and she doesn't realize that those people remember things, you know? And I plan to use that to my full advantage and make sure that this stops. I want Honey Badger Radio to be shut down by the end of the year. That's my goal.
I just want it to be shut down eventually. Whether it be the end of the year, whether it be within 2 years or whatever, I want it gone to a point where it's a, you know, a little bit of a memory somewhere in the far, far, far gone, you know, kind of thing.
I want to be able to say, my goal is going to be able to look back in my dotage and say, oh, remember when you helped make that thing called the Honey Badger Brigade, and it was great, and then those crazy bitches stole it. Ha ha ha! They got their desserts. Yeah. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
But let's get back down to the meat of this, because what did you think of the battle that was Alison Tieman versus the one and only Mr. Maneker about the cuck that is Dr. Random McCam? I hate his name.
Just say Mike.
Mike. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with it because I really hate his name. His moniker sucks.
So, listen, as a recovered alcoholic and somebody who studied domestic violence and abuse for a very long time, that man is a dangerous, violent alcoholic. and he is a classic abuser. And as he is an alcoholic, I'm not even saying it as an insult.
I can clearly see signs of it because again, not to bring in a little bit of personal on me, but my father's a recovering alcoholic, and I can see those signs. Those signs are all there, and I was like, there's something.
It's not just alcohol.
No,
by the way.
No, I know.
But there's the drug. See, basically, when you're an alcoholic, in some cases, you can go into other dependencies, including drugs, and some start off with the basic ones, which is marijuana. The others will go into like cocaine, heroin, or whatever the actual drug of choice is, whichever is the easiest to get to. But nonetheless, we're getting back down to the overall. What did you think of that battle between the two over the factor that Mike wasn't able to actually show up to a battle that he started and instigated against Menaker?
I'll tell you what happened there, because
there we go.
You're not the only person who has I haven't actually ever been in a honey badger room, but you're not the only person who's ever infiltrated. And Alison literally said that they needed some drama in order to gin up donations and get more attention in traffic, and so they roped poor drunk Mike into picking a fight he wasn't prepared for, because there was no fight to have, right? And you're mean to the Aspies, but really you're gonna give Jimmy Menaker don't be mean to the poor Aspies. Are you kidding? That's like throwing chum at him.
It's literally his shtick.
Yeah, he's his bread and butter. He calls everybody autistic. I mean, come on, that's his classic thing to go to. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's trying to be mean to to anybody who's autistic. But if you could find out that the person is autistic, and that it just kind of goes, okay, so it's true. He is autistic and he's an idiot.
You attack him. Attack him for that. He's going to tie you into a pretzel and just cue you up and shit you out. I mean, these people are a disaster from start to finish. They're awash in freaky, weird Marxist, pseudo-Marxist, postmodernist babble, and they're fueled by alcohol and autism.
Yep.
That's it. They got nothing else but a need for control, and it is a classic Marxist cult. I've read about many little Marxist cults, from the likes of Bernadine Dorn to Madame Mao to what's her name, who was with the Black Panthers. I've read a lot about how these Marxists, they're little radical Marxist cults.
I forget her, but I know who you're talking about. I'll have to look that up later, and I'll post it somewhere. But continue,
exactly like those, either the big ones and the little ones, and they all go the same way. They all end in lots of sex, drugs, alcohol, and fighting.
Yeah,
that's how they all end. So it's where they're going, but hopefully we can speed the demise and leave them all hideously embarrassed to show their faces in public.
Well, they started that because of their attempted attack at Jim, thinking that they would get a bit more extra cush for the blood sport that is. And obviously they realized that they bit off more than they can chew. Even worse, and this is kind of weird, she allowed one of her own patronage to come in to defend them.
Yeah. And that guy can argue that he did it on his own volition, but to say that there wasn't any encouragement there, I refuse to believe it.
Yep.
There would have been. Yeah. All right, guys, I actually am going to drop. I'm sorry.
Thank you again, Dean, for kicking around. Like I said before, you have an open invite at any time that you wish. Please let me know so I can add you to the list. And again, thank you again.
We'll be having many conversations. Good night, everybody, and God bless.
Great.
Okay. Well, that was
great.
Fun, Nino. That was very informative. That was.
It was very informative.
Yes.
It didn't go in quite the direction we were hoping, but I can't say I didn't learn a lot. And I'm not regretful at all.
Of course. Well, that's the beautiful thing about being here within the Red Pill Compendium. You never know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get the hard truth and nothing more than that, and that's what we offer here. Nothing. That's basically what we have here. Isn't that what our moniker is? Offering the truth and nothing more.
100%, and that's why I said it was surprising what direction this went in. I didn't expect that, and I'm glad it happened. I apologize for anyone that's listening to this that's expecting it to like super juicy and super thorough stuff straight away. This is going to be a breakdown. It's going to take a while. And first we need to talk about like the whole, like who they are, what their motivations might be. And once we've covered that whole thing, we can actually get into the nitty gritty and show some, more, get a little bit deeper into it. Once we've covered, I guess, how the Honey Badger's formed, who they are, what the motivations are, and all those other things first.
Well, I think Dean kind of covered that in the beginning.
Very
while
well.
You were away.
Very
He
well.
covered very, very well, being the main, one of the actual forefathers behind the actual Honey Badgers Brigade. He did give us a lot of information. For those who are wondering, all you have to do is, go to your Google machine or whatever, type in Red Pill Religion, and you will find Dean Esmay, or the farmer, Dean Esmay, now MaxKolbe, running around. If I do have a link eventually, you could probably go over to the Discord that we have, going through the Gator and Frog and all that. I don't know if I have a link for that as of yet in the low bar. I'm going to have to do that later. Put a link in the low bar for the Red Pill Compendium Discord. As I like to call it, the cancer den, where you learn everything and you will learn how to banter. You have to be careful.
Yes.
Because earlier today it was quite fun between myself and Dean, because I kind of introduced myself like I normally do, kind of going after reading his giant word display of text, and it was like going, okay, this is a wall text, there's a lot of information for anybody to process, and I'm like going, thank you for the diatribe kind of thing, but as an atheist who does kind of view your religion as kind of archaic, barbaric, and so on and so forth, but you're allowed to practice it, I'm not going to stop you from that. And then he just went into a giant tizzy. So I kind of triggered
it was a very interesting debate to watch. I'm going to be a bit more generous because, I don't view it as barbaric as just something I disagree with.
Again, you have your own opinions, and that's what they are, sir. They're opinions. I mean, I'm looking at...
That's the great thing about religion, is because that bit, there is no truth. It's just whatever your truth is.
Correct. And that's kind of something that I would want to get into much later, hopefully with Dean Esmay, to see exactly how he crossed over, because that would be an interesting tale by itself. But for anybody who might be watching or may not be watching, this again is Red Pill Compendium. You can catch us here usually at 7 p.m. Eastern PST. See, now I'm thinking pen already. God. And we usually cover a lot of different things, from mostly men's rights to MGTOWs to anything else.
I like to say manosphere.
The manosphere is a really good way of calling it. Yes, we cover a lot of different things. We're not just focused on one main niche market. So keep that in mind. We are something somewhat new, and we're trying to introduce a lot of the old ways back into the group, because I've noticed that they're gone, and it's been bastardized and been taken over, and there's a lot of things that have changed, and it's about time that the old people came back to the block and said, you know what, you fucked it up.
Yeah. We're taking away your ball until you learn how to play with it again.
Yeah, because I have some issues with the MGTOW community that is current, and I can't classify them as MGTOWs anymore. They have gone beyond a point of no return. They are whiny, virgin wannabes who have no idea what it is to be classic MGTOW. And again, that's a term that I've coined. And I'm going with, it's classical. It goes back to the root of the originality of the idea, where men did their own thing. They learned, they did their own cost-benefit analysis, and they realized what was going to be best for them. They did them, whether it be going into religion, whether it be having a wife, having children, not having children, going around doing whatever men normally do. They were men. They weren't whining about what it'd be like to be with a woman, or why the women are mean to them and didn't touch them in their special places.
Exactly.
they didn't care.
It was far less jaded, and now it's become very jaded. And let's just say when you finally get to the ones who did get someone to touch them in their special place, it usually gets into the spitefulness of bad relationships, which is just as bad.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the worst thing about it, because that's basically what happens. It's a yo-yo effect. The moment they get a relationship going, then the relationship was sour because they don't know how to deal with it, and they blame the other person because, hey, they're at fault. They're the ones who are corrupting the system. They're the ones who are the money hungry hoe that all she wants to do is fuck around with other guys. Well, have you thought of maybe it's your fault? That maybe you weren't attentive enough, that maybe that you were too focused on things that had nothing to do with a relationship?
Or maybe you just picked someone who would be willing to date you and you didn't think about whether or not that person was like suitable to date.
Correct. That'd be the other possibilities. There's a lot of possibilities. And again, focusing on one idea means that you're inflexible, means that you do not have an opportunity to be a bit more open-minded. And unfortunately, for most, there's a lot of closed-minded people who automatically assume that it's the other person who has fault and never them.
Yeah.
So that's basically the nif and the gif. So, Nemo, since we only have a few more minutes to go, rattling, did you want to pimp anything that you're interested in?
No, as I said, we're working on doing the creepypasta channel very soon. I practiced my first recording the other night.
I listened to it. It's not bad. Not.
That's my very first one. I didn't edit. I didn't do anything. I just sent it.
Yeah, no, that's basically what I want you to do. Is just remember, space yourself out when you do a faux pas, so that it's easier to remove. Just in case, because you might actually have a good set, and I'd be able to slice it up a bit.
Yeah. It's hard to do that while you're doing that. That's why you probably notice me spacing it out sometimes, and then sometimes totally not spacing it out.
I know.
It's fun. I'm getting pretty excited for doing that, and that should be out probably by the end of the month, like where we actually start doing that properly once we get out all the kinks
once we get all the bugs out of the way. I think by either next month or maybe in the next 2 months. Which is what today is, so March, April, maybe roughly around there. I definitely want to have it all figured out before the summer hits. Because basically the Red Pen Pal Compendium is pretty much ready to go. I just have to make sure that she also gets properly recorded and sent up to the SoundCloud. We have Gator and Frog that is in almost its full year. Its full year will be in August, folks. That'll be insane. So we've got to do something. Also, the Gator and Frog will be doing a Passover special, as for Penn wants to do something different because, well, she being a little Jew girl, she wants to make sure that her Passover with us is just as spectacular. Me being an atheist, I demand my ringlets and my round hat. Because, you know, if you're going to be Jew, you got to be Hasidic. I'm sorry. It's got to be all the way or no way, bitch. So,
and you got to get a waterproof
a yarmulke for the fish.
Yarmulke for me. Yep. On that note,
before we forget, Draconith, he's also got his little things to do, but right now he's in the middle of mid-move, so anything that we have for the Inquisition of the Dragon is on hiatus until he's ready to record. Pen, you can catch her on her her Pen Plays. She's available on Twitch. She's put in Penina Chan. Or you can go over to gatorandfrog.com. That's on the first link on the lower side, or the low bar that we have there. That will go over to the Gator and Frog main page. All you have to do from there is go to network, and from network you will see our 4 lovely faces to go to our YouTube channels. On
ding ding.
Anything else before I give you the intro to get out?
Nah, sorry I was late.
What?
That's it.
The Penina Plays. Yes, I just got to shorten it up to Pen Plays. Yes, you know what? You're gonna be Pen Plays. It's a lot easier. Pen plays this. Pen plays that. Pen plays the flute. Watch her do that. No? Yes? Anywho, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this was a lovely edition with our special guest, MaxKolbe formerly known as Dean Esmay, of the, the Red Pill Religion. Thank you again for kicking it around. Yeah, thank you. I'm Dr. Seuss. I am Dr. Seuss, the Canadian rogue. Over there was the one and only Finding Nemo, who eventually found himself and got over here. This was the Red Pill Compendium, and we are all bidding you all a good night.
Peace.